You're going to check those settings while okay. All right. So, hey, everybody. We have some technical difficulties going on, and Ben's trying to work through those, but we want to go ahead and get started because we know a bunch of you are already on and watching. And so instead of watching a black screen, we thought we would let you watch Ben work his magic to get Mr. Brunson up and going. That's the beautiful thing about a live webinar.
Yep.
You never know what's going to happen, right? So these are not rehearsed. These are not rehearsed in any fashion whatsoever. They're not scripted. They are live and very personal. So when you run a live event, sometimes things happen, and things have happened today. So hopefully they'll get that worked out in just a second.
We're good.
Are we good?
I think good.
I only had to stall for like 30 seconds there. That's pretty good.
Yeah, you're doing really nice. I'm going to put all of our antiquated electronics away and go with the one that works.
All right, good. Well, you've got just a little bit of twang in you. So let me just let everyone know, again, thank you for being patient. We're going to go ahead and get started. Mr. Brunson is operating in some kind of fashion there. Listen, I'm excited to have Mike on with us today, and hopefully the device will work that he's on now. We are up close and personal with him now, but that's quite all right. So since we're actually 4 minutes late, we're going to kind of dive right in. My name is Bryan Reynolds. This is the Appraisal Report webinar brought to you by Appraiser eLearning. We're happy that you're here today. We've got a lot of folks already on. I would like to remind all of our viewers that this is live. And as a consequence, you have the ability to type right in and ask us a question. We'll get to as many of those questions as we possibly can during this broadcast. And also, I'd like to remind our viewers that these broadcasts are recorded and they're readily available right after our broadcast if you want to go back and review, or if you have to go do an appraisal and you can only watch 10 minutes or so and you want to catch the rest of it. All of these are available recorded for you on our YouTube channel. Hey, speaking of YouTube, while you're there, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Go ahead and subscribe to the Appraiser eLearning YouTube channel, and you'll be in the know of any upcoming webinars. And occasionally we have special webinars that you won't want to miss. So if you go ahead and click the subscribe button, you're in the know already. My guest today is Mr. Michael Brunson. He is a practicing appraiser. He is an AQB certified USPAP instructor. He's a pastor, believe it or not. So be nice. You know, he's got a direct link with the man upstairs. And he's a litigation support specialist, and he's a good friend, although he steals my jokes when I visit him in Las Vegas. Mr. Mike Brunson, and the crowd goes wild. Mike, thank you so much for being here today. How you doing, my friend?
Really good, Brian. Sorry for the difficulties this morning. Not sure what's going on with the internet connection, but they say if technology works, it's obsolete.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you've got to just roll with the punches especially when you're doing a live event. Those things happen. It's kind of like when we teach a live course, you know, you never know. Miss Diana, I talked to her about that. And you know, you're ready to teach and you've got 50 students out there waiting and looking up at you, and your books don't arrive. Or your projector for your PowerPoint dies, right?
Projectors or anything like that, right?
And so that's a live event. You kind of got to go with it. Mike, I'll let you introduce yourself to all our viewers if you don't mind, and if you're okay with it, let them know how they can actually reach out to you should they want to communicate to you outside of this format.
Sure. So Mike Brunson, I am a Las Vegas resident. I've been here since I'm 5 years old, and I can tell you people actually do live in Las Vegas. Brian kind of gave you my initial bona fides. I've been appraising residential property since 1995. In 2015, I've been doing commercial for a long time, but in 2015, I went ahead and upgraded the license. I'm an SRA, an AQB certified USPAP instructor. I'm addicted to school. Finished a master's degree about a year ago, and I'm in the midst of program right now. I am a boots on the ground appraiser. As soon as we're done here, I've got 3 VA inspections that I got to go do today. So this whole topic of the future of appraisal and bifurcated appraising, or whatever we want to call it, it's a hot button issue, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, thank you for being here. And, you know, it is a hot topic, and we are, again, going to let our viewers ask any questions or put out any comments because it is a hot topic. One thing that I have learned is that folks resist change. And it's not just appraisers, it's human beings in general. I mean, we just resist change. And I talk about, have you ever met someone that's worked a job 30 years and you say, man, you've been here a long time, you must really love it. Well, I hated the last 29 years. Well, why are you still there? Why are you still? Well, you know, it's a job. Or you meet a married couple that's been together 40, 50 years and they can't stand each other. And hopefully that's none of our viewers or any of our friends, but you know, it happens. And we all just get comfortable. We get used to our routine, and the thought of changing is scary. And so I'm guilty of that as well. So when we talk about changing the way appraisers conduct appraisals, or when we talk about a new process or a new idea, I would suggest we all need to at least keep an open mind. And I don't know that I'm sold on all this stuff, so please don't send me any hate mail, folks. I've got mixed feelings about it, but we certainly need to consider that things are going to change, because change is inevitable. I mean, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, Mike, you know, over the past many years, we've seen some changes, and we've seen, you know, from the traditional appraisal process where we go out, we look at the property and we measure it, we photograph, we do all that thing that we were taught. We've seen drive-bys become very popular.
Yes.
We've seen the desktops kind of come on the scene, and many appraisers have resisted those. We've seen hybrid appraisals come on the scene, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But today's topic is really on the bifurcated, boy, how do you say that word? Bifurcated appraisals. And a lot of our viewers have no idea what we're talking about. So we're going to kind of take this piece by piece, if you will. If you don't mind, let's start out with the hybrid appraisals though, because I think people have heard about that. I just got an inquiry from a former student that said, hey, you know, I'm getting tons of calls right now, and they're wanting to send a real estate agent out and drive by it, look at it, and then me do the analysis. So talk about that a minute. Tell us what a hybrid is and the intent behind that.
So the word hybrid or bifurcated appraisal, it's kind of a term of art, really. We are using it because other people are using it. We all know what a hybrid car is. It runs on both gas and electricity, right? Or dual fuel, something like that. So they've adapted the term, I think, to this new concept in typically residential. I haven't seen it in the commercial yet. Have you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen the bifurcated where we split that up. I haven't seen the hybrids as far as sending an agent out. Not yet, no.
Right. So the issue that I see is that let's go back to 2008, 2009, when broker price opinions were not new. They've been around forever, but were really proliferating in 2008, 2009. And I recall people reaching out, asking if appraisers could do them, or if appraisers could give us something. We don't need a 1004. We don't really need a drive-by. We need something from an appraiser, but we don't know what it is. Can you help us? And by and large, I'm not saying everybody, but by and large, the appraisal profession responded with, no, we can't help you. And so the client went out and found a solution, met their need. That That's what open markets, free markets do.
Right.
So we all know what happened. States now have a carve out in their legislative statute regarding appraisers that allows agents to conduct BPOs without being an appraiser. I think had appraisers as a profession been more open to the change indicated the BPO, we could have found a happy medium. Most clients were willing to pay more to have an appraiser conduct whatever it was they would have called it. It probably wouldn't have been called the BPO. Maybe it would have been called a hybrid. But we said no, so they found someone else to provide what they needed. Here we are again. I'm with you. I'm not sure I like this concept, but I'm not sure I don't. There are a few that I've seen where people are sending bifurcated orders out, and they've already pre-selected 100 comps, and you have to pick the best 10, and then you use their software that you have no real control over to run the analytics, and you're supposed to then sign your name to it, and the fee is $15.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And I'm looking at that and I'm just going, even if I could do 20 of those in an hour, that would be a decent hourly wage. I'd take that. But the lack of control, the lack of understanding gives me great pause.
Right. No, I'm with you there. So let's talk about this for a second. And I want to just kind of take a step back. Bifurcated, what does that even mean? Bifurcated refers to a split or a separation or a parting. And when we talk about bifurcated appraisals, this is nothing new with regard to commercial appraisers. For instance, if I was going to appraise the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, oh my goodness, whatever that was, sorry folks, I would probably have a whole team of appraisers, right? I wouldn't try to do that by myself. It's a big property. So, I would probably engage the services of a whole team of commercial appraisers to assist with that process. Mm-hmm. It kind of makes sense in that regard because the fee is going to be substantially higher. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense that I could have an army of appraisers helping me. Maybe I assign you to do this part, you to do this part, and I'll do this part. But we're all going to have separate roles, and we may collaborate on certain things, but there's enough money to be able to split that up. Bifurcated appraisals haven't really caught on as much on the residential side because you think, gosh, if I try and chop this fee up in several different places, there's going to be nothing left, right? Well, that's today, but maybe there are ways to do it. And so bifurcation appraisals is what we're talking about, is just separating out the roles. Now the hybrid, and again, I'm like you, Mike, we get these terms thrown at us, and I wish to goodness appraisers would come up with their own terms, right? Instead of users coming up. I still get frustrated about a trip fee. Right. I cannot find the definition of a trip fee in the Dictionary of Real Estate Appraisal and the Encyclopedia of Real Estate Appraisal or in any recognized piece of appraisal literature. And for crying out loud, a trip fee sounds like I fell down. But yet,
let me pause for 1 second. So you said a couple of things that got me thinking. You said that you appraisers would come up with the term, and I think that the key to appraisers coming up with the term is that appraisers have to engage. So I am a fan of passionate people, but there's a time and a place for constrained passion. And I can tell you what doesn't work in these settings is when you have the users of appraisal services like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac showing up and saying, we want your feedback, and the response from the professional appraisal community is anger or, the grid off, I'm going to pound my shit on the table and ignore you. Man, welcome to live webinars. I'm using my wife's Mac and the battery's low. I got to go find a charger. Entertain me for a second, or
do what you need to do. I've got some things that I could show. I love this guy. He loves to make it challenging for me. We've got a question coming up already, so I'm going to take it without Mike. Wells says, what's driving the need for hybrid products, the cost or speed? Wells, I would say yes to both of those comments, cost and speed. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world of instant gratification. There is an app on your phone for everything, isn't there? And clients and users of appraisal services they're just not going to continue for a week or 2 weeks or 5 days for an appraisal. I mean, they want them now. We live in the world of instant gratification. I want it, I deserve it, I want it now, by God. And the clients and the users are no different. And so that's what is part of the driving. What was interesting is when I was in Las Vegas and Mike, what he was trying to say, and again, I apologize if you're having difficulty hearing Mike. We're trying to work through that. But Fannie Mae offered a session where it was open to everyone. Lenders, AMCs, appraisers, hello. And we need appraisers to get involved. I mean, thank you for watching this webinar. We've got a lot of folks watching right now, but we need you to get involved. And you know, I had somebody in my class this Monday. I was in a live class and a gentleman in the back of the room says, well, what can I do? You know, there's nothing I can do. And that's not true. You would be amazed at how, if you get involved, you can most certainly make a difference. And these other groups are really large. I mean, the real estate organizations, the realtors, if you will, have a huge organization, NAR. And as a result, they have a loud voice. The banking community has a very loud voice. Appraisers are very fragmented. By definition, we are independent. And that's a problem with appraisers coming together. So please get involved, folks. You can make a difference. You know, one of the things Fannie Mae asked, and now Mike's up here, we're going to kind of get his take on this. One of the very last questions at this roundtable, and I'll say this, Mike, I don't know if you saw me sneak in. Our flight, it came on time, but the pilot came out and he said the first time in 20 years of flying, I have to report to you that, first of all, there's nothing wrong with the plane. The plane's fine. It's safe. Safety first. But your luggage was going through the Nashville airport and a pipe bust and liquid went on it. And we don't know if it's hydraulic fuel or what. So your luggage isn't going with you. And I had told Julie the night before, man, I probably ought to lay out a nice sports jacket and, you know, be comfortable, but at least. And then I thought, well, they've never lost my luggage. I'm going to wear shorts and the polo. And so I'm the only guy at the Fannie Mae roundtable meeting in a pair of shorts, but I was there. And so one of the things that they asked at the very end was, what can we do? What can Fannie Mae, what should we think about when changing the way appraisals are done to make them faster and make them cheaper? And the first thing I said was, I don't think they need to be cheaper. In fact, maybe they should be more expensive. And then as far as the time, even though I just said a moment ago, we live in a world of instant gratification, everybody wants it now, maybe, just maybe, this is something that we ought to push back on and say, look, you're asking us to develop an opinion of value of this property, which is more than likely the consumer's biggest asset they'll ever have in their entire life. Maybe we shouldn't rush that process. Maybe you don't have to have it in 2 days. Maybe this should be a pushback that says, you know, let's not rush this process because it is a critical part of the valuation model or the collateral that's servicing the debt. Mike, were you at that roundtable for Fannie Mae?
I was there, and I didn't mean to walk away. As I mentioned, you know, we're having some minor technical difficulty. But what I meant was I think it's wrong for appraisers to be passionate. I just think that in a setting like that, it's more important to be professional. And I'm guilty. I let my passion take over sometimes. and you say things that come off as ultimatums. And that's certainly not the appropriate place to issue an ultimatum. Fannie is probably the largest single user of residential appraiser services, and they have a lot of input in what we do and how we do it. Whether that's appropriate or not, that's a question for people above my grade. But they do have input, they do have control, and they are seeking the input of professional appraisers.
Guys, and I can't stress that enough, Mike. I mean, we had a conference in Nashville. We're having a conference coming up in Salt Lake City. It's called the Appraisal Conference and Trade Show, ACTS. The NAA is a participant in the Appraisal Summit Expo. Guys, get to a conference. Listen, when is the last time you got to go up and have a conversation in person with Fannie Mae or FHA or VA or the ASC? This is an opportunity for you. And so I can't stress that enough. Hey, Mike, we've got a couple of questions. Let me just throw those out. Some of them are comments, some of them are questions.
I agree with Philip. He says you have to get involved. And
so let me read that to our viewers so that they all know what we're talking about here. So we have a gentleman that has typed in. The first is a comment. They're both basically comments. I'll let you further echo on this, Mike. Philip says the days of sitting on the sidelines waiting for things to happen to us are over. We must, all in caps, by the way, we must get involved. You must start going to your state board meetings and get your voice heard. Thank you, Philip. I love the comment. Mike, what are other ways appraisers can get involved?
Well, so I think Philip has it right. You start at the state level. You're not involved at the state level. What happens at the national level is going to be beyond your control. So if you have a state appraiser organization or two, join them both. Participate. Normally, state organizations are very full, and they are really the advocacy groups for commercial and residential appraisers on the state level. They're the ones that are going to go to the state legislature and make sure that any issues positively affecting appraisers are advocated for, and any issues negatively affecting appraisers are fought against. Typically, that involves hiring a lobbyist, and that's expensive. So that's why you need to get involved.
Yeah. So last Tuesday, I believe it was Tuesday. It's hard for me to even remember what I had for dinner last night these days, folks. But I believe it was last Tuesday. Jumped in the car, drove down to Nashville. They were having the Tennessee Real Estate Appraisal Commission meeting, and they were talking about new rules. And I'm nobody, but I am a practicing appraiser. I'm certified in Kentucky and certified in Tennessee. So I wanted to, let my voice be heard. I've surveyed some local students and said, hey, what would you guys like for the rules to be in Tennessee? So I went in there. I had some firsthand knowledge of what hundreds of appraisers in Tennessee wanted. So I went there not only to speak for myself, but to speak for those folks. Guys, there was a couple of different organizations there. There was a nationwide educational provider there. A couple of the folks that were representing organizations were appraisers, practicing appraisers, but there weren't a lot of just appraisers that weren't affiliated. It was appraiser, boots on the ground appraisers, Mike, that you and I talk about a lot. Yeah. And I just want to tell you something. Philip is absolutely right. If you grab 10 appraisers or 15 or 20 or 25, 10 would work. And you show up at your next real property appraiser board meeting or commission meeting, you're going to get their attention. There's no question about it. We have some other comments. Let's get to some of those. Dina says yes, and I think she's yesing Philip. So, way to go, Dina. Philip, you've got a fan base here. Craig, our good friend Craig out of Illinois, he's an attorney. He says, Brian and Mike, can you touch on hybrid or bifurcated reports, appraisal reports, might be appropriate and what to do. Communicate with the client, walk away. When would it not be appropriate? So let's address that. When would it not be appropriate?
Well, keep in mind, as an appraiser, I've seen a couple of other comments too talking about our liability. Somebody said, hey, if they want it cheaper, indemnify the appraiser and pay for our E&O. I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah, I saw that one.
The interesting thing about the valuation world is that appraisers really are the only neutral, independent party in the transaction. And this is one of those moments where our legislators in Congress got it right. They always wanted a neutral, independent, we're free, right? We have no skin in the game. Our job is just to tell you what we believe the market supports. We're mirrors. We measure and we reflect. We don't create value. There's a little friend, Brunson. You know that when he says create value, he's not talking about making it up. But
right.
The point here is they want it faster, they want it cheaper, and we all know the paradigm. You can't get it fast and cheap and still have quality.
Right. But let's talk about that for just a second, and then I really want to get into hybrid and bifurcated. But let's talk about that for a minute. It used to be that we as appraisers around the country, and especially commercial guys, I'm gonna charge by the pound. I'm gonna bring an old phone book size report to you and bring it in a wheelbarrow, and I charge you a higher fee, right? But over the years, my appraisal reports have gotten thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner.
Okay.
And you think about who your client is and what they want. So if your client's a homeowner, do they really even need a picture of their own house, for crying out loud? They know what it looks like. So I've always been adamant. John Dingman and I have a conversation about the chocolate cake and how AMCs and clients want sprinkles. And I said, if you want more, if you want those sprinkles on there, that's more work, and more work means more money. Well, I think the same truths hold if we're reasonable, if we invoke a little common sense and say, if it takes me less time or less work for that matter, in other words, I can write a 10-page report a lot quicker than I can write a 40-page report.
So it's interesting that. I can't, obviously, for confidentiality reasons, to tell you specifics, but I appraised a crazy high incidence recently for internal purposes. One of the highest valued properties in Las Vegas. Report was 10 pages long, including certification and limiting conditions.
You broke up there. How many pages?
10.
10 pages. Wow.
They didn't want one photograph. They didn't want a description of the property that they own.
They didn't need that. Yeah.
What's the reasonable range value? So I agree with you. So maybe there is, because of technology and because a refined client doesn't need the detail, maybe we can still charge a little less because reporting takes a long time and give them the quality. But that's something that each individual appraiser has to decide on their own. What is that balance of fee and product that they're willing to work with? So back to Chris' question about bifurcated appraisal, they might be appropriate. Let's remember the uniform standards have zero requirement for a physical inspection of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Never has.
That's right.
Most appraisers are willing to do a drive-by, look at the outside of the property, and assign a value to that property, having no earthly idea what the condition of that interior is.
Right.
Except that because they show an assumption and clearly and conspicuously state that the use of the assumption is reasonable, but affects the assignment results. Mm-hmm. So if we get a bifurcated assignment where somebody's done a detailed inspection, somebody who's qualified, done a detailed inspection, why wouldn't we rely on it?
I think that's the question right there is, can I trust that person out there? And I'm going to try to share my screen real quick. So everybody look at my screen and tell me, Mike, can you see that? It's the appraisal process. All right, I'm going to blow it up. So ladies and gentlemen, what you're looking at now is what you see a lot in appraisal literature with regard to the appraisal process. Okay. And I'm trying to blow it up so everyone can see step number 1. And so step number 1 of the appraisal process is, what's your problem? Okay. It's a problem identification, definition of the problem. And we're not going to go through all these little blocks. This is not a class for you today, but I am going to focus in on this little block right here. And that little block says, identify relevant characteristics of the property. And so that's really what we're talking about today. I mean, why do you go do an inspection? Or people like to call them observations, Mike, to maybe try to. Yeah. I don't want to be confused with a home inspector, but I don't care if you call it inspection or observation or look at or fly by or drive by, whatever you want to call it. The intent of doing a physical inspection is for this box right here, is to identify relevant characteristics of the property, right? So are there other ways that we could get those characteristics? You mentioned a drive-by. Appraisers out there watching have been doing new construction for decades, and they're okay with that, and they haven't seen that property, right? So there's sometimes you can't see the property. Maybe it burned to the ground. Maybe you have a hostile tenant in there that's going to shoot you if you drive by, for crying out loud. So
it's not even built yet.
Yeah. So let's get to some of these questions, and that'll take us down another path. We could talk all day, and I've still got lots I want to ask you, Mike, but we've got questions rolling in. Hal says, Brian, you've talked in the past about the doctor's office model. Could you, if you haven't already addressed that, touch on that? And basically what Hal's referring to, if we are professionals, and I believe we are, sure. If we are professionals, we ought to be able to act like and behave like a professional. So if you think about when you go visit the doc and you say, hey, I got a problem right here. What does the doctor do? The doctor first interviews you to identify the problem, right? The first process of the appraisal. What's your problem? Well, I fell out of bed, or I woke up this morning, I'm hurting back here, and the doc will poke around on you. First, they interview you. What happened? Did you fall out of bed? Did you lift something heavy? Did your wife hit you in the back? Were you on the dance floor too long last night, kicking up your heels? What happened? Nothing, doc. I went to bed feeling great. I woke up this morning and my back hurts. Mm. Well, then they might do the physical inspection and poke around on you a little bit. Oh, yep, you found it. That's where it is. Huh. Well, everything feels right. Let's go take an x-ray. You want to? So they go shoot an x-ray. Do you, as the patient, get to see the x-ray? Probably not. Probably not. And let's say you do see the x-ray. They bring it into you, Mike. Here's your x-ray. Can you read it? You're not able to read that x-ray, but the doctor read it. And then they might say, hey, let's do some lab work. Let's do some blood work. Let's take your urine sample. You typically don't see that. In fact, they typically don't get the results of that for another day or two. So you're at home and the phone rings and you answer the phone and they say, hey, everything checked out, Mike, you're good. Do you say, I'm not going to accept that diagnosis unless you send me a 40-page written report with the x-ray and with the lab work? And don't forget to put a copy of your appraisal license on there and your E&O policy, right? Do you say that, or do you accept that doctor's professional diagnosis, or what really is an opinion, via the telephone? And guys, USPAP allows you to do oral appraisal reports. Take a peek at Standards Rule 2-4. So I'm sorry I hogged that, Mike. That question was for me. Jennifer says the job is too hard to get normal work nowadays. I can't stomach AMCs anymore. It's not really a question, a comment. There are tons of comments coming in. I don't have the energy for a hybrid. It is completely cost cheaper. I'm not sure what she's meaning by that.
What she's saying is that the focus, by the users of appraisal services is cost. They're focused on cost and fast.
Okay.
And as we've talked about, you sacrifice quality in theory if you operate fast and cheap. And I agree. There is a way to improve our efficiency and to improve communication so that our clients feel better about the work that we're providing.
Yeah, I mean, we don't type appraisal reports on a typewriter anymore. It doesn't make sense to do that. So we need to
there's
embrace
things that
the tools.
to address, right? So first, Joseph, he's been really good at commenting here. And he says every meeting I've been at, Aero, FNFA, NAR, et cetera, appraisers are always professional and great feedback. And I agree with most times, appraisers who attend these meetings are professional and do provide great feedback. But just like the BPO issue in 2008 and 2009, these bifurcated hybrid appraisals have appraisers on the edge of their seats. And what tends to happen is, because the perception is they want it faster, they want it faster, they want it cheaper, I'm not going to do it. We tend to get passionate and we miss the opportunity to communicate in a professional manner. It still comes across that we're upset about you want to pay us less, you want us to get to you faster. But maybe we aren't hearing the full conversation. That's my only point. And we can make arguments that you can't get it cheaper and faster and still get the same quality.
Let me bring up a couple of real quick questions here, Mike, and then we've got to take a short break. Joseph says, Brian, AMCs have folks on the payroll that are paid to attend these events. Appraisers have to do it on their dime. And he's right. He's absolutely right. You know, for you to take a day off. I mean, I drove 2 hours, was in the regulatory board. I thought they'd let me go first. They didn't. we had to go last. And then I had a 2 hour drive back, and it went on and on and on and on and on. And I had work to do. I didn't, that was a big sacrifice for me to be there. But guys, if you think about it, and Joe's comments well received, it costs you money. Time is money. Especially if, like, my student from Monday says, well, what difference can I make? You view it as a waste of time. I'm telling you, it's not a waste of time. You need to get involved, and you think it may not impact you. What if they create a policy that says now you got to measure a house standing on 1 foot? You like that one? Do you like that new rule? So get involved, because it takes you time to go attend these meetings. It costs you money, but in the long run, if you don't get involved, it could cost you a whole lot more. Just like the appraisal waivers with TriStar Bank, right? So look at Jim there. I'm
glad you're getting there,
Mike. He says, I thought I would hear more about USPEP considerations when performing these. So we'll get to that in just a second. Let's take a real quick break. My name is Bryan Reynolds. This is the Appraisal Report webinar. We bring these webinars to you free monthly. Normally they're on the fourth Thursday of every month at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. We may massage those dates for November and December, because you probably want to eat turkey on Thanksgiving instead of looking at me and my guest. But typically throughout the month, it's the fourth Thursday of every month, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. The Appraisal Report webinar is brought to you by Appraiser eLearning. Got a whole vast book of courses. We'd love for you to check those out. Guys, we invite you to participate. If you would like to be a guest, we'd love to have you. If you know of someone else that you would like for us to have as a guest, we would love to have them. Just send your comments. Let us know if you want to be a guest, or if you want us to reach out to someone in the industry. We would be happy to have them in the hot seat, as I call it. It's not really hot. And again, these are all being recorded. You can go back and watch these at any time. Finally, be sure you hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and do it right now. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you're constantly in the know with Appraiser eLearning. And Mike, since we got a little late start, I know you're a busy guy, but we may let this run over a little bit. We've got lots of questions coming in, and I'm gonna let you talk about Jim's comments about his concern is USPAP compliance. So you're a USPAP guy. Why don't you address that question for Mr. Jim for me?
So Jim, and anyone who's listening that's concerned about the USPAP requirements for inspections, just go to Advisory Opinion 2. It covers the issue from soup to nuts. There is no requirement in uniform standards to conduct inspection, even though in many residential circumstances we do go out and look at the property. We're going to use the word inspection because that's the word that's in USPAP. You can use whatever other word you prefer. If you go to AO2, it'll tell you somewhere in there that an appraiser can use a combination of an inspection, reviewing plans, looking at photographs, property sketches, looking at recorded media, anything. It probably doesn't mention virtual tours, but virtual tours are a way to see the interior of a property maybe you don't have the opportunity to get into for whatever reason. Just remember the inspection, the level of inspection is a scope of work issue. And you as the appraiser get to determine the scope of work that is necessary to provide credible assignment results. And remember, the credible assignment results in the uniform standards are all in the context of the intended use. So some intended uses might require an inspection of a property by the appraiser. Others might not. And this is where we are kind of fleshing out when I have to see it, when I not have to see it, when can I rely on somebody else's eyeballs? And under what circumstances. My suggestion as a USPAP instructor is be cautious of relying on somebody else's eyeballs. Because you're the one that eventually is you're the one with the errors and omissions insurance that's going to sign a certification saying this is my number.
You're signing it. Yep.
Yeah. And keep in mind, even if we do, as appraisers, put in a really strong, clearly conspicuously disclosed extraordinary assumption, because we don't know whether the information provided to us is true or not. Even if we put that there, the borrowers, who Peter Christensen of LIA tells us all the time, the borrowers are the #1 people filing suits against appraisers. They're not going to read and understand the extraordinary assumption language the way that a user like a lender or other appraiser would. They're just going to see a number, and then when they find out that number is wrong for any reason, the appraiser is the bad guy. So there's a lot of liability resting on our shoulders. So my advice is USPAP says you can do it, but approach with caution.
Right. So let's break this down a little further and really get into what I think is kind of an exciting part of this or interesting, and try and figure it out. All right. So most appraisers are very resistant on some of the things you just said. Okay. You mean to tell me I'm going to sit at my desk. Now I'll say this, heck fire. I like the idea of being able to do appraisal work from the beach. I like the idea of, maybe getting a lake house and sitting on my boat, or, having I like that idea of having that flexibility, right? If I don't have to physically go look at the property. But let's talk about it a minute, because I think that's one of the biggest, other than cost, a lot of the appraisal community is pushing back for that. I don't blame you there. How can I trust that real estate agent going out there and looking at the property and then sending that stuff to me? And, I just don't feel good about that. I believe we just had a comment on one of the question bars there about, I don't trust them. I don't trust somebody. I trust my own eyes going out there. So one of the things Fannie Mae talked about at the roundtable, and guys, get involved, send comments to Fannie Mae, for crying out loud. You know, they are coming up with a new appraisal report form. And I've been preaching that for years. Let's get rid of the bath wainscot. You know, I asked Freddie Mac the other day, I have a serious question. How many loans have ever been denied based upon what the bathroom wainscot is? Has there ever been a loan denied based on it? Can we take that off the form? And I have appraisers argue with me. Well, Brian, that indicates what the quality is. Well, I get it. Well, so did interior doors. Why'd we take that off in 2005? So anyway, stay with me here. If you don't like real estate agents going out and doing the inspections, get it, got it, good. What if we had someone else do it? What if someone that has been properly trained, not as an appraiser where they know what the principle of anticipation is and what the principle of competition and substitution, and they know what paired sales or regression or group sales or market sales. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, we take somebody and we train them on how to do the inspection. Okay. Maybe we train them and they get certified as a home measurement specialist. They take the ANSI class and they learn what is expected when calculating gross living area. Okay. I've got a new course coming out. I'm excited about. It's called the Appraisal Inspection. And we break down in this course what should you be looking at when you go look at a property. I mean, no one ever taught me. I mean, back in the day, I was given a clipboard and a camera and said, take off, you're an appraiser, right? And hopefully your trainers aren't doing that to you today. But we're trying to put together a course that what should you look at as a practitioner when you go out and you look at these properties. Okay. So maybe we train an observer or inspector. People hate using that term because they think it's a home inspector, right? But an appraisal inspector or an appraiser observer or something, and we train them on how to do the inspection. Now, let me ask you this. If you had this person, or I'll let you borrow my person, right, that has been adequately trained on how to go look at a property, how to measure it, how to put that information in meaningful information, and then transmit that to you as the analyst appraiser. Is that something that you or the appraisal community might be more willing to embrace than a real estate agent? Your thoughts on that, my friend?
So my thoughts, Brian, is that we have a model already in existence that could solve this problem. Appraisers all across the nation have interns or trainees. In Nevada, they're called registered appraisers. They have to have taken their 90 hours, and they have to have, I believe they have to have passed an initial exam before they get their credential. And then have to work underneath a certified appraiser who's been certified for at least 3 years before accepting an intern. The perfect party to learn how to and then to conduct these property inspections is a properly trained registered intern or appraiser trainee.
Yeah, but try and get the lending community to accept that. Before the housing crisis of 2008, people were using them like crazy, and then after the housing crisis, everyone says, no, you as the certified appraiser has to be the one to do it. So it puts
the problem there is that everyone is the AMCs or the engaging client, because Fannie clearly said we encourage the use and we recognize trainees
absolutely
an acceptable practice. So what we're waiting for is the people at the top, Fannie Mae, the people who are the base, us as the foundation, we recognize the importance of a trainee or an intern in the process. What we're missing is the middleman. The parties who are hiring us, they're demanding that the appraiser go and look at it, and that is what I think that's where we need to push back and say, you could get it faster if you let a person who's trained in analytics stay in the office. I'll go out and I'll teach this individual or these individuals how to inspect the property to the degree that I'm comfortable with their expertise. That way I'm in control.
Right.
I know as the supervisor who is and who is qualified to conduct a property inspection and at what level of the mark they're qualified.
Right.
I get somebody out who comes back and answers to me. And, you know, on the current Fannie form, that trainee in Nevada should be able to sign on the left, indicate that they're a registered intern appraiser. I should sign right as the supervisor, and it should say they inspected and I did not.
Right. And I'm with you there. And
to that modality, because that solved the problem. And
right.
It would increase appraisers' revenue because initially trainees, interns, it costs a little bit of money, but eventually it's cheaper to have multiple people working in a process than to have one person doing everything all by themselves.
Yeah. And I have a whole chapter dedicated to that, whether it be an administrator or office staff or a trainee or an unlicensed assistant, because some states are voluntary states as opposed to mandatory states,
Right.
Which means if you're in a mandatory state that says you can only have 3 trainees, you got 3 trainees. But if you're in a voluntary state and Fannie Mae says that an unlicensed individual can provide a significant portion or the entire appraisal if they're competent to do so, and the certified credential appraiser signs on the right. So I'm with you there on the trainees, and I think that is a solution to some extent. I guess I'm asking, you know, in most states you have a trainee or an associate, and then the lowest level of licensure is a license level, then certified residential, then certified general, right? I'm suggesting why don't we have another category that, you know, I've got somebody that loves going to look at property. You know, they don't aspire to ever getting their appraiser license. Right. They don't care about even being a trainee appraiser, right? Why can't we just have a different category with a different type of training, okay, that is just for them to go look at the property on my behalf? And then that's an opportunity to, you know, grow your business as well, to speed up the process. I might not have to, as a business owner, I might not have to pay those folks as much as I would a trainee appraiser. And maybe I can lend those folks out to others. Maybe I can have, you know, an inspection company where I provide that. You know, I'm talking about good, credible, qualified, competent folks. And not only do I use them in my business model, maybe I'll lend them out or for a fee, have them do that for your appraisal shop.
Frankly, Brian, I think it's genius. I don't know that we need another level of credential licensing per se. That said, you know, if the states wanted to pursue that route, who knows? That might be good for the state too. It's more revenue. But I think these are all healthy ideas that should voice, and I know they are being, you know, in these forms to Fannie, Freddie Mac. We really need to get the middleman, AMCs, if they're going to continue to exist, they can't be putting additional requirements on the appraiser that are over and above the Fannie Mae guidelines, and expect us to comply. I am not anti-AMC, but I work ready. So between the lines there and make your decision. I just have decided that my business model, I'm not willing to jump through the hoops, and, like you said, stand on while I'm measuring, which while I haven't seen that requirement, it wouldn't surprise me in some of these 38-page engagement letters that are just ridiculous.
You know, I had a conversation with a group of appraisers the other day, and one of the things I suggested is that folks consider bringing on a trainee. You know, I had a cram course which was a course for people that were about to take their state exam, right? Just had this last week, and one of the trainees, Mike, he's almost finished his journey to become certified, but he said, man, the biggest obstacle I had was trying to find somebody to mentor me, right? He said, I called 82 appraisers.
Yeah.
82 before he found one that was even willing to talk to him about taking him on as a trainee. And, I think that we have a responsibility as we get a little older, as we've been in this business for a while. If the profession's been good to you, it before you exit the profession, maybe it's your time to give back to the industry. You started from somewhere. The problem that most appraisers have is, I'm going to bring a trainee in, which could potentially increase my liability. They provide really little to zero value to me because I got to go with them on the first X amount of assignments, right? And now it slows me down. And plus, by the time I finally get them to the state where they can provide value to my business model, they up and leave me. So that's been a lot of the argument. And so do you have any thoughts or you were suggesting trainees, do you have any thoughts of what might be I just kind of gave all the cons, I guess. What are some of the pros? Why should any of our viewers out there listening consider bringing somebody into this industry?
Well, I think this is one of the areas that appraisers, professional appraisers need to really push back. Is need to remind users of our services that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and pretty much the federal law allows us to train people, utilize them in the process. The AMC model requiring an appraiser to conduct every inspection personally has really made it so that it's not profitable to hire a trainee or an intern. If we can change that and it becomes profitable again, well, then you'll see a resurgence of trainees back in the market. And I agree with you. There are people looking for work that are willing to do good jobs. And I think if we just focus on that for a while, we have a process in place. We don't have to change anything. Just let us bring our trainees, our interns back into the mix, and we can get things to you faster. Don't know that it's going to be a lot cheaper, but we can get them to you faster. You'll get 50% of what you're looking for, and we can negotiate the rest later. Hey, I see a question from Craig that I think is really important. We did talk about the fact that you can use an extraordinary assumption, but remember, it's your responsibility as an appraiser to make sure that the use of the extraordinary assumption allows credible assignment results. Mm-hmm. So if you've got an inspection that says the house is in C4, C3 condition, but you've got some other conflicting information that it's gutted the studs on the inside, can't just go ahead and use an extraordinary assumption that it is in C43 condition and pretend the other data doesn't exist. You must reconcile the conflicting data and make sure the assumption allows for credible assignment results. So in a circumstance where you have inspector saying one thing and other data saying another thing, you can't just pick. You have to disclose, try and figure out which is true, and that might be one of the circumstances where you say, listen, I can't trust this inspection. If you want me to proceed, I need to put my eyes or somebody works for me, their eyes on this property before I move forward. And then back in the client's.
Very well said, my friend. Hey, I've got a great example of that. Many years ago, I was asked to appraise a house interior, like, what the majority of what we do is. And so I went and looked at this property, right? And I'm doing my thing like all of you do. And in my professional, independent, unbiased, expert opinion, I felt as this home was below average condition. Are you with me? It was not average for the area. And I stated that in my appraisal report, submitted it to my client. About a week later, the same client called me back and they said, Mr. Reynolds, we got your report. We're fine. We would like to engage you. We know it's a new assignment, but we would like to hire you to do another appraisal on that house. But this time we would like to order a drive-by and just have you assume the property's in average condition, okay? So that was one where, no, I can't do that. I know.
I repeat that back to you. I want to make sure I understand what you want. So what I heard you say was you would like me to lie to you.
Right.
And commit fraud. Is that
right? You want me to be a participant in mortgage fraud, right? I just want to make sure I understand that. So yeah, there are many times out there, guys, that you do have to withdraw. I mean, I say all the time, with scope of work, extraordinary assumptions, and hypothetical conditions, it lets you as a practicing appraiser do almost anything.
Yes.
I didn't say you could do anything. I said you could do almost anything. Scope of work, extraordinary assumption, and hypothetical condition are fantastic that allow you to do almost anything. Mike, our time is up, my friend. I thank you so much for being here. I want to have you back on again real soon when we can figure out the broadcast stuff and make it nice and sharp and clean, because you're a handsome fella and you're a little blurry right now. So people aren't getting the real you and your voice. So we definitely want to kind of put you back on the calendar, get you in again, if that's all right. Hey, if anybody wants to reach out to you just one more time, can you let all our viewers know how they can communicate with you directly?
Sure. I gave permission to post my email and my office number, but I'll give you that right now. My office number is 702-641-5657. And my email is Mike, M-I-K-E, at rpdexpert.com. That's Real Property Damages, RPD, Expert, EXPRT.com.
Yeah, we'll have Ben send that out to everybody, because unfortunately, my friend, that was breaking up a little bit. So I know they struggled trying to get that down, but we will have Ben communicate that all to our viewers. Thank you very much. Where are you going to be coming up soon? Any place somebody could actually bump into you physically?
Everybody's going to be in DC at the TAFAC meetings on November 28th. I'll be in DC representing the National Association of Appraisers and the Texas Appraiser Coalition. I forget what their
ATA,
the Association of Texas Appraisers. Sorry. And after that, I'll be in Lake City for the ACTS Convention, the Appraisers Conference and Trade Show. I forget the dates on that, but if you just Google ACTF appraisers, it comes up second listing on the list. We'll get number one soon. And other than that, just reach out to me anytime with questions. Happy to talk to anytime.
Very good. Thank you again, my friend. I appreciate you being on here. Certainly at short notice, we did that to you once again. Always a pleasure to see you and talk to you. And again, I do want to have you back on real soon. I'd like to thank all our viewers for watching today. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties that we had. We'll work those out. We'll iron those out. So next time we won't have any of these issues. Again, if you would like to be on the broadcast, or if you know someone that you would like to watch on the broadcast, give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to invite those folks. We love to get different perspectives. So listen, you don't have to agree with anything we've said today. We'll give you a platform to say what you would like. So again, would like to thank Appraiser eLearning for letting us get together again the fourth Thursday of every month, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll stay in the know. Thank you again. This is Bryan Reynolds with the Appraisal Report webinar.